There could be some short-term one-off price hikes. But at least for now, the economic signals are flashing slower growth and higher inflation. Not good.
Unfortunately, it seems that people are suffering in the Trump economy, which is why his economic approval is plummeting and inflation on Trump's watch is skyrocketing. But despite that, there is one silver lining, which is watching a prominent MAGA Fox News host, a top Trump economic advisor in his first term, visibly die inside on camera as he realizes that this is terrible political news for Trump himself. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I want to play a couple of clips in this video, starting with two Fox News clips. And I should say, spoiler alert, the protagonist of this story is not Trump himself so much as it is Larry Kudlow, a MAGA Fox News host who used to advise Trump on economic matters in his first term. I want you to see these two clips back to back where he tries to spin the bad news in a positive way, but ultimately throws in the towel.
All right, so the markets look to close weekly. So the week-to-date numbers, everybody's in the red. Rough day today, but we'll be right back here on Monday to do it all again. That's it for us. Kudlow's next.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. Stocks are swooning, and Charles Payne's going to help us out in just a little bit. Tell us why all this is happening.
So I guess, I don't know if he was saying swooning or soaring or he jumbled his words and said both, but that was the initial cope from Larry Kudlow. And then the reality sunk in. Okay, so here's Larry Kudlow facing the facts as MAGA Fox News host, former top Trump advisor, admitting that things are not going so well under the Trump economy and we might see price hikes.
There could be some short-term one-off price hikes. But at least for now, the economic signals are flashing slower growth and higher inflation. Not good. There could be some short-term one-off.
Just, again, so funny to see this Fox News host react the way he does, because the fact of the matter is they assured us that when Donald Trump became president, overnight things would change. Remember, Larry Kudlow did everything in his power to downplay the economic achievements of the Biden administration, held them to impossibly high standards, never emphasized anything good. And then if things good did happen, like stock market performance, they would try to credit Donald Trump, even though he was out of office. That's the type of person Larry Kudlow is. So to watch him in real time just kind of break down and like, there's going to be slower growth, higher inflation, price hikes, the sorts of things that he assured us would not happen if Trump were elected because Trump is such an infallible genius. Well, it is happening. And this is where it stops being funny, because then you realize actual people, like as humiliating as it is for Larry Kudlow, and it is, and we should take pleasure in that, there's also real human suffering attached to it, which is really unfortunate. And I want to give you an example of it right here. A caller into a C-SPAN show who gives a concrete, specific example about what Donald Trump's inflationary policies and posture have created for his life.
Yes, ma'am. I'm calling from West Virginia, and which was a red state for Donald Trump, and they have a place called down here Public Debt, and a lot of my neighbors would vote for Trump. They walking around scared, crying, nervous, and they were forever Trumpers. But on a personal note, I'm a diabetic and I'm on Medicare, and when Joe Biden was in there, my insulin was $6 for a 28-day supply. I just went to CVS to get my new supply. It went back up to $80, they said, because the American Recovery Act was canceled. So it went from $6 to $80. So I don't know if anybody else out there on Medicare.
So this is a person calling in saying that his insulin prices have skyrocketed on Trump's watch. I've seen similar things before within the past few weeks that insulin prices are increasing. But let's dive into some of the specifics, okay? So there's a good U.S. News and World Report article about this. We're going to look at a few more as well. Inflation, tariffs turn consumer sour on Trumponomics. Americans are losing confidence over inflation and the effects of Trump's proposed import tariffs. So here are the key takeaways. A key measure of consumer confidence turned sharply lower in February as Americans see higher inflation and prices from Trump's economic plans. Inflation expectations saw their largest monthly jump since 2021. Buying conditions for large ticket items like cars and furniture plunged on fears over proposed import tariffs. Consumer sentiment took a market shift downward in the latest University of Michigan monthly sentiment survey released Friday as Americans expressed increasing concern about Trump's import tariffs and continuing inflation. The overall consumer sentiment index for February dropped nearly 10%, 9.8% from January to a reading of 64.7% or 64.7, while the index of current conditions fell 12.5% to 65.7. The index that measures how consumers feel about future economic conditions dropped 7.9% to 64. Consumer sentiment overall is down nearly 16% from a year ago when Biden was in charge. Notably, inflation expectations surged, with consumers saying they expect year-ahead prices to rise by 4.3% over the next 12 months, a full percentage point jump from a month ago, and expectations for long-term inflation saw the largest monthly increase since May of 2021. Quote, "The decrease was unanimous across groups by age, income, and wealth," said Survey Director Joanne Su in a statement. Quote, "All 5 index components deteriorated this month, led by a 19% plunge in buying conditions for durables, in large part due to fears that tariff-induced price increases are imminent." Pretty sobering stuff. The latest survey follows other yellow flags this week, including a handful of polls that have shown Trump is viewed unfavorably by a majority of those surveyed on the issue of the economy. Trump vowed to lower prices on the first day of his return to the White House a month ago, but has not delivered on that promise and has even backtracked on comments. And it comes as the GOP Senate voted early Friday on a $340 billion budget that actually increases federal spending and the national debt after Republicans campaigned on the issue, blaming President Biden for running up the debt during his term, even though Donald Trump approved more to the national debt by far than President Biden, $8 trillion, which is the single greatest contribution in a 4-year term. Republicans say the additional spending on border security and defense will be offset with cuts, although those promises and passed from Congress have not materialized. The increasing concern over the direction of the economy could pose a political problem for Republicans, especially those in the House, who have to face voters next year and already have razor-thin governing margins of just a few votes. That will factor into the House's own budget negotiations that feature a single, broader bill than passed by the Senate. Quote, "The public's fears have soared in just the last 2 weeks, showing the blizzard of changes coming from the president's desk have spilled over the line between pro-growth into the realm of pro-inflation," said Chris Rupke, chief economist at Forward Bonds, FWD-BONDS. Quote, "Once inflation expectations start moving higher, it's only a matter of time before actual inflation takes off." Top of that, Newsweek, which is relatively conservative, posted this headline: "Donald Trump polling worse in the economy than any recent president, including Joe Biden and Barack Obama." According to a recent Gallup poll, Trump's approval rating on the economy stands at 42%. This is lower than any president's first-term February reading in recent history, Gallup notes, including those for Joe Biden at 54%, basically during this time in his presidency, Barack Obama at 59% during this point in his presidency, George W. Bush at 53% during this time in his presidency, and Bill Clinton at 45% during this time in his presidency. Trump's campaign focused heavily on the state of the U.S. economy, the candidate decrying Bidenomics as an accelerant of U.S. inflation, painting his opponent's policies as more of the same and promising to bring down prices on day one. Alongside Americans' concerns over immigration, this was credited with securing his victory over Vice President Harris and paving his path to the White House. However, Trump's low economic approval rating indicates that Americans are discouraged by his approach so far, amid anxiety over the domestic impact of tariffs and recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing that America's inflationary struggles are far from over. The New York Intelligencer magazine has this: Trump's poll numbers are eroding and could collapse over inflation. Let's see. During the first month of his second term, Trump's popularity started out mildly positive, but has slowly eroded, according to the 538 averages. As of January 24, his job approval ratio was 49.7% positive and 41.5% negative. As of Thursday, it's 48.7% positive and 46.2% negative, which means that his net approval has slipped from 8.2% to 2.5%. The very latest surveys show a negative trend, as the Washington Post noted. Given all the controversy his actions have aroused, that may not be surprising, but he has some vulnerabilities behind the top-line numbers, mostly involving ideas he hasn't implemented yet. His proposals tend to be popular at a high level of generality, but much less popular in some key specifics. For example, a February 9th CBS survey found 54% supporting his handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict, so again, the broadest possible terms, but only 14% favoring his idea of a U.S. takeover of Gaza, which of course will require ethnic cleansing. Across a broad range of polls, Elon Musk's assault on the federal bureaucracy is relatively unpopular. Cites examples as well. But here's where it focuses on the economy. But by far, Trump's greatest vulnerability is over his management of an economy where renewed signs of inflation are evident and where his policies, once implemented, could make conditions worse. Already, his job approval ratings on managing the economy are slipping, as a February 19th Reuters Ipsos poll indicated. And a mid-February Gallup survey found 54% of Americans disapproving of Trump's handling of the economy and 53% disapproving of his handling of foreign trade. More ominous for Trump, if the sentiment persists, is that the negative feelings about current economic conditions are as prominent as they were when they helped lift Trump to the presidency. So think about that. They're about the same as they were for how they felt about the Biden-Harris economy. That's not good. So Republicans and independents will for a time share Trump's claims that the current economy is still the product of Joe Biden's policies, but not for more than a few months. A particular controversy to watch is Trump's tariff wars and their potential impact on consumer prices. As a CBS survey showed, sizable majorities of Americans already oppose new tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and Europe, with tariffs on China being an exception to low levels of support for that key element of Trump's economic policy agenda. And the same poll showed 66% of respondents agreeing that Trump's focus on lowering prices is not enough. Now, it goes on to say that since he's not running for re-election, he just may not care. But the Republicans surrounding him will have to care and will have to return to their districts to try to make the case. And again, this is where Democrats should be relentless in punishing the Republicans for their support, their cultish devotion to Donald Trump, and to make the case to Republican constituents and independent constituents that they're better off voting for Democrats. So there you have it. Some serious suffering going on, and yet watching Larry Kudlow realize in real time and the cope just finally evaporate, and he has to concede that the Trump economy is crumbling around him despite his promises that that would not happen. That's fascinating to behold. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.